This is a Christmas vlog. Sophie has been nagging me. Sophie is the script development exec, script exec at Double N Films, and she also gently nudges me for blogs for our site, doublenfilms.co.uk. And I did write a very funny blog, and then I thought, well, actually, maybe we should be vlogging as well, which is why I'm doing this. And I'm not going to edit it and do fast little cuts. I'm just going to speak unedited about what we're up to at Double N Films. And I think maybe we can also put some bloggy bits, i.e. words, on this page as well. So, and the most interesting thing that's happened to us recently was that and it got me thinking about the process of filmmaking, which is why I want to vlog this, because I think it's more interesting if I talk about it without writing it, because I was asked a couple of weeks ago, last week, to call the agent of a established actor, wonderful actor, huge fan base, someone we've made an offer to for one of the projects that we're working on, and I was asked really to talk about myself, because I've only got one feature film credit to my name with Papadopoulos Sons. It is always still a risk for actors when they're getting involved with independent films. I completely understand that. I get that. So I thought it was important that I speak to the agent and hopefully communicate to the client about my process. And it was only after I put the phone down that I really thought about how I made Papadopoulos and Sons, about the process that we engaged with when making Papadopoulos and Sons. It was only afterwards that I realised that actually that process is actually quite special in terms of how films are made, because of my unique relationship with the DoP, who on Papadopoulos and Sons was James' friend, and together we'd worked out a really interesting process that was actor-led, because I trained as an actor and I'd spent many years as well improvising with a brilliant improv theatre company called Flux, which is run by the most wonderful man, Chris Johnson, who set up Flux, and he's written some books, and maybe we can put some links in the page to some of Chris's improvisation books. Because of my experience as an actor and understanding improvisation in the way that I did, it was really natural that when I came to make Papadopoulos and Sons with James' friend, who was very actor-led DOP, it was very natural for me to throw away everything that I'd learned at film school, which was floor planning and storyboarding, but more importantly, floor planning. Because for all those who are in sort of starting out, and I know that with Papadopoulos and Sons we connected with a lot of sort of indie filmmakers, first-time indie filmmakers, second-time indie filmmakers, because of the way we distributed it. So I've, through Twitter and social media, I seem to have connected over the last 3 or 4 years with many sort of indie filmmakers who I've met. This is quite interesting, because we effectively threw away the floor plan. And normally what you do is you prescribe. It's prescriptive. It's a prescriptive creative process. How it's going to be, where the actor comes in, where the actor walks to, where the actor sits, and what the camera does during that process. And me and James seem to have come together, and I don't really appreciate how different it was or because it was my first movie, until a few years later when I'm talking to other filmmakers about their process. But it was quite unique, because what we effectively did was I would rehearse the actors for a scene without any of the crew present, and I would allow the actors to find their organic blocking. So we knew what the mechanics of the scene were in terms of who says what to who wants what from who. But we hadn't done the blocking. And so when we got on set, it was really a kind of, we would always have 30 or 45 minutes where before we went for the first setup, we would effectively, I would rehearse the actors, sometimes less, sometimes 20 minutes, because sometimes these scenes were quite short. So we would rehearse the actors. They would organically find their blocking really quickly, actually, really quickly. And what James did was he would have an SLR camera. The only other people on the set would be the first assistant director. In Papadopoulos, it was Anna, and sometimes the sound recordist, because that he would need to see whether there was any technical issues in recording the sound. That was Simon Colmayo, I think the best sound recordist in London or in the world. And we would then rehearse the actors, so free from lots of people. And James would have the SLR, his camera, and he would effectively take what he thought were going to be the setups for shooting this scene. And then once we called that rehearsal process to an end, we would then show and tell to the whole crew. And James will have then, myself and James would have looked at his shots that he's taken, and there would be 3 or 4 key setups from that rehearsal. He'd delete loads of photos. We go, okay, these are our 3 or 4 setups. Maybe this is a 5th. Obviously, you've got your master shot. That's our master shot. This is first setup, second, etc., etc. And we would show this to Anna the first, and we would very quickly, within minutes, work out how long we had to get our must-haves. So we might have had 3 or 4 hours allocated for this scene. We would say, well, do you know what? This is now what we need to do in those 3 hours. We need to get this master shot, these 2 setups. Absolutely, 100% have to have those in the bag. And then these are our nice-to-haves all the way down the list. And you would never you might get 1 or 2 of your nice-to-haves if you were lucky, because you were so focused on the master and the must-haves. But what was interesting about that process was none of the actors questioned it. Not one actor said, "Where's the floor plan? Where's the storyboard?" This didn't even occur. James was such a brilliant, fast lighter, and because we planned well, and we had, for example, the fish and chip shop was effectively an empty premises that we'd hired off a high street in Morden. It had once been a carpet shop. So it's this huge, big, cavernous shop, and we built the chip shop within it, almost like a studio, and we were able to put a lighting rig in it. So it's like having a mini studio. So that was really brilliant in terms of saving time. So James was really quick at lighting. He really quickly understood what the setups were. It was completely geared around the actor's performance. So if you look at Papadopoulos and Sons, you have to bear in mind it was shot actually with actors 22 days. We had another 2 days for general pickups and establishing shots, and traveling shots, when the cars are going from A to B. But only 22 days with actors. One of those days was a write-off because we had the London riots. So really, that film, what you see on screen with those actors, is 21 days shot and shot very quickly and very efficiently, because we're not trying to force the actors to a floor plan. And I know that goes completely against everything that I learned at drama school, because at film school, because at film school they were shot list obsessed. They said, when you go make your film, the studio is going to want to see, even before anything else, they want to see your shot list for every scene. And that would require a director to effectively come up with a floor plan with his DOP. So I think for drama, comedy drama, it's perfect. Obviously, you couldn't work this way for an action sequence, but weirdly, even with we have this huge dance scene in Papadopoulos Sons, which took up a whole day of shooting. We had to improvise then as well, because we didn't know how that dance was going to spill out, because we'd kind of rehearsed it in a church hall like a week before. Then we all arrived on the streets of Morden, and we had to just let it happen. And Danny, our camera operator, and James, the DOP, had to cleverly work out what we needed to do. So there was a lot of steady cam on that. It made sense to have a steady cam operator in the middle of the dance to get that sense of energy and movement. But effectively, what you're also doing, you're asking your actors to organically improvise the blocking, firstly, and you're trusting the actors to do that. And guess what? They're able to give more confident and naturalistic performances, because they're not having to think, okay, where I come, here's this spot, I come in, I need to stop there, deliver 3 lines here, and now I need to move here, because they found the movement organically, that they don't have to think about their movements. And secondly, what James is doing as well is we're kind of organically photographing the film in a similar kind of way. Sometimes James would say, look, you know, with regards to the blocking that's been found in a 30-minute rehearsal, James might say, look, if Frank or Stephen or George or Ed, whoever, if they can come around the table this side rather than this side, it saves us a setup. And so you'd say, Ed, can you come around the table this side? Of course, not a problem, easy, done. So that's the only tweaking we had to do, and so it was really fast. So the reason I'm talking about it now is because I tried to explain this to an agent when trying to reassure him about how I would work with his client, and I'd completely forgotten, because this was a few years ago when we made Papadopoulos and Sons. I'd completely forgotten how, because when you're in the heat of the moment, you're not able to extrapolate the process in the way that I'm doing now by looking at it from looking at it with some distance. You're kind of in it and doing it. It just feels the most natural thing to do, and you wouldn't think of any other way. And you're not going, oh shit, where's the floor plan? Oh my god, we're doing this without a floor plan. Oh my god, we're doing this without a storyboard. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that interesting how we're working on this process? Isn't it interesting how that James is effectively organising the photography around the improvised blocking, which is also the most organic. You're not I'm only doing that now, weirdly, strangely. Now I'm thinking about the next movie. So now what I'm doing is like, well, how can I improve on that process, and what were the weaknesses of that process? And this is very interesting, because I had this conversation with Stephen Delane after, and he won't mind me talking about this. We had a conversation, and he said, he said to me, I really get what you were trying to do. I get it. What he'd seen it in the cinema, and we'd had a conversation, And he said, but this is the weakness. And he was absolutely right. In order to get away with this way of doing it, because so much of the emphasis is on the master shot, it requires a much more structured rehearsal process before you shoot. And this is what I want to do differently on the next one. Because on Papadopoulos, we have 5 days rehearsal. One of them is the read-through. One of them is dancing, actually. So you're left with 3 days. And so what could I do in 3 days? I couldn't really go through the screenplay scene by scene with all the actors, sort of spending, I reckon you need to spend an hour every 4 pages. I think an hour every 4 pages or an hour every 5 pages. What that does is allows you to read it through once, read it through again, having asked questions, then get it up on its feet and play it 2 or 3 times, asking a few questions. And but I didn't have time on Papadopoulos Sons to do that. And so with the last 3 days that I had, I effectively did character work. So I did 1 day with the kids and the Papadopoulos children, and we just did character work. I asked them to bring in a toy or an object they felt connected to, that they could then bring on set, and they could have it on set. And also got them to draw some stuff, and we just talked. And then I did a whole day with Stephen and George, and we ran a few scenes. And the most exciting part of that day was when we stopped for a cup of tea. George and Stephen just carried on in character. We were in a church, and we went into the kitchen to make tea, and they just carried on in character, talking about their backstory, but as characters, discussing the past. And I was making the tea, and it was spine-chillingly brilliant, because I thought, my God, these people are starting to own this. And it's a wonderful moment when other people start to own something that you've started, written, initiated. It's exciting. It's like someone wants to adopt an aspect of you. That's what it feels like. And it was very exciting. And then I had one more free day, which was not doing any rehearsing, actually, but just technically sorting stuff out. So really, the conversation I had with Stephen straight after he saw it was that this process works when you've got a much more structured rehearsal period, because then it allows actors to go on set and just be just a bit faster on the cues. They're not having to learn they're not having to understand the nature of a scene whilst we're shooting it, because they've already done that before, so they're able just to do it. And because of the emphasis on the master shot, it means that they can be tighter on their cues. And actually, the weakness, if there is one, and most people would notice it, is just a couple of beats sometimes are missed on some of these cues in the master shot, and that's just purely that purely reflects the actors trying to get into the scene whilst we're shooting it, whereas the rehearsal period beforehand allows the actors to do that. Now, what's interesting is, for the next film that I dearly want to shoot, is this is the process that I want to put in place. I want to have, in an ideal world, I want to do a read-through on the Friday before the rehearsal week. I want to do any dancing and choreography on the Saturday. And then I want Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, purely rehearsing with the actors. Now, everyone talks about that as the luxury, but really think about how much time you're saving when you're shooting it, because using that process of getting rid of storyboard and blocking, and okay, we have, if there's an action sequence or a car chase, you can't do it without a storyboard or a sort of understanding of sort of technical floor plan. But in the business, everyone talks about rehearsal period as a luxury, but when you bear in mind that we made Papadopoulos Sons with actors, 21 days with actors, and you see that film, you never imagine in a million years that took 21 days because of the process that liberated us, that we weren't effectively chained to a floor plan. And that is I have to say, and whether James sees this video or not, is the genius of James' friend, I have to say. And obviously, if it's what I would want to work. This is how I'd want to work with a DOP or a cinematographer next time, in this fluid way. It requires quick thinking. It requires quick lighting. But it's incredibly effective. And what was interesting that I wasn't really, I'm only really now thinking about these things now. Now I'm talking to agents and other actors about how I would want to make the next film. But this is a process that I would dearly love to embrace fully. And you look at, and it comes from my passion for trusting. Why would I trust an actor to just do it? Because I've been an actor and I've improvised on stage, and you've just had to do it, and that's without a script. We've had to come up with a story without a script, and that involves just trusting actors. And I think at the heart is it. Well, I mean, I'm not very experienced. I've only made the one film, but I'm wondering whether there is a conflict at the heart of filmmaking, which is trust. Is the reason why Marlon Brando was such a nightmare to some directors was because he knew they didn't trust him? And is that the heart of so much conflict on a film set? Is the difficult actor not really difficult, but effectively saying, why don't you trust me? Because it's their job to just do it. So interesting. I was going to I wrote a funny blog, but then I thought, well, actually, instead of writing a funny blog, I'll do a 25-minute vlog, unedited, just speaking about process, filmmaking process. What is your filmmaking process? You need one, and I'm not saying the floor plan storyboard isn't right. It just might work it just works for some directors, but there's another way. It's like, what suits the tone and spirit of the script? What is it? What is the tone and spirit of the script? Because the tone and spirit of the script will inform the process. And at the heart of Papadopoulos was this sense of fun, of family coming together, and it made sense to make it like this. And in my next film, the spirit is, again, the key word is fun, and I would want to do it exactly. I would want to build on what I started with Papadopoulos, and it wasn't conscious. It sort of fell out, this way of working, partly because of James's influence, partly because of my influence as an actor and my love of improvisation. So the two kind of came together, and we developed a process, and Stephen was smart enough to recognize what the strengths and weaknesses of that process were. So that's it. I mean, Sophie will put some words on this blog underneath. Obviously, if you're just watching this on YouTube, there is no blog, it's just a video on YouTube. But if you want to see more stuff, what we're up to, go to doublemfilms.co.uk. That's doublemfilms.co.uk. You know, we're doing some interesting things, putting together some interesting projects, and it's raising lots of interesting questions. 25 minutes, done.